Boy, Jacksonville State just had no trouble at all adjusting to the FBS level, and they have quickly become one of the better programs in Conference USA. Entering 2024, they look to do the same thing again. And if it were not for the FCS to FBS transition rules, they would have been competing for a conference title last season. Well, that's the goal this season, whether they can or not. They want to be right near the top of the conference, and can they repeat their first year success in 2024? You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to prediction season here where I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams. Please help support the channel any way you can. If you have a Power 4 team that is your favorite, if you're a fan of a Power 4 team, they already have a video up on my channel. And if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, you got to hit the subscribe button. You got to ring the bell. You're going to want to know what I have to say during the season as well, right? But hey, you can help support the channel in many, many ways, including watching this video, which I greatly thank you for, because it really does help support me in a ton more ways than you can even imagine. You can like, you can comment, you can share. Really, anything else you do to help support the channel would mean a lot to me. I greatly appreciate all of your support this prediction season. We'll dive on in to talking about, I believe, our third team out of Conference USA, and that is the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. How do we do predictions around here? Well, I'm glad you asked. We'll take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the video, we will dive on into the Jacksonville State football schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple more things, though, before we do start, because right over here are going to be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And, of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. We'll waste no more time. Let's dive on in. Talking about the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, and you got to start out with the offense from last season that overall did not have a fantastic passing game. Zion Webb was that quarterback last season, had 1,437 yards, 6 touchdowns through the air, but did have 8 interceptions. Again, the passing game was not what led this offense. They were one of the best rushing attacks outside of Army, Navy, and Air Force in the entire country last season. Over 236 yards per game. Now, yes, Zion Webb was a big factor to that as well. 708 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground last season. So you do lose a really effective quarterback during his time at Jack State here in Zion Webb. You will be losing him due to graduation. He has run out of eligibility. So you turn to, well, who in this quarterback room? Well, you do have a couple transfers coming in. Zion Turner, I believe, is coming over from UConn. And then you do have Tyler Huff, who is coming over from an FCS program in Furman. But your starter here, a former Nebraska Cornhusker, is Logan Smothers, and honestly did not have a bad season with Jack State last year. 735 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks. Yes, had some moments where he didn't look that great, but overall, I think coupled with his experience in a Power 4 program like Nebraska, coupled with the experience that he had last season under Rich Rodriguez, and in this program, he did get some starts last year as well. I think you're going to see Logan Smothers have a pretty successful season for Jacksonville State this year. I really like his game. I think he's got a lot of very good attributes that can make him a really good quarterback, and I'm excited to watch Logan Smothers here in 2024. He probably will end up being that starter for the Gamecocks this year. Running back room. Let's talk about what Jacksonville State has in the skill position room, right? Malik Jackson is going to be gone out of this running back room. He had 897 yards and 7 touchdowns on 146 carries. For those of you math nerds, that's 6.1 yards per carry, and every statistic I just talked about led the team. By the way, you want to go back to Logan Smothers when you talk about this run game. 322 yards, 7 touchdowns for him. He's shown the ability with the legs. Again, overall, I think will be a solid dual threat quarterback. But to go back to the running back room, Malik Jackson has gone due to graduation. No more eligibility for him. And Rajion Bennett will be off through the transfer portal. Now, more of a depth piece last season, only had 27 carries for 60 yards, but it is a loss out of the running back room nonetheless. So with Jackson and Bennett gone, who comes back in this running back room? Well, I'm glad you asked. And again, Zion Webb being the team's second leading rusher. You, again, still get a running threat at the quarterback position and Logan Smothers back. But Anwar Lewis should be the lead running back this season. Now, him and Ron Wiggins are the 2 returners to this team, and they kind of split carries between the 2 of them last season. 92 carries for Wiggins, 93 carries for Lewis, and Wiggins just had 16 more yards rushing than what Lewis did last year, both of them over 450 yards. 6 touchdowns for Wiggins, 3 touchdowns for Lewis. You might see them split carries here in 2024 as well, but I think they did really well in the transfer portal to go and get this guy over from Georgia, an and that is Andrew Paul. I think he's going to absolutely light up this running back room, and at the end of the year, you could see him be that leading rusher for Jacksonville State this season. I like his game, especially coming over from a program like Georgia. That's a huge get for Jacksonville State, as well as a couple freshmen coming in. Justice Savage and Christian Lando could see some good playing time out of the running back room this season as well. You want to take a look at what they lose out of the wide receiver room? Well, you do lose Perry Carter and Quinton Lane, both of them due to graduation. Those are your top two leading receivers from a season ago. 672 yards and 4 touchdowns for Carter, 342 yards and 1 touchdown for Lane last season. You are also going to be losing Sterling Galvin to the transfer portal. Again, a solid depth piece, but still over 100 yards of receiving. That's nothing to bat an eye at all, especially considering how inconsistent this pass game was last season. You take a look at what this wide receiver room has coming back. Well, PJ Wells is coming back, Michael Petway is coming back, and Brock Rechsteiner. Apologies if I mispronounced that last name, but you do get all three of those guys coming back to the wide receiver room. Wells and Petway definitely the two most notable pieces there that'll see some good playing time, but you did get a lot in through the transfer portal here, including another Power 4 transfer. He's coming over from Clemson. It's Brandon Spector, guys. He could absolutely light up this wide receiver room as well. You are also getting Samario Rudolph. He is coming over here from UAB. You're getting DeMarcus Lacey, who is coming over from North Alabama, and a guy who I did not mention on this board, at least you don't see his name listed, is Tavarish Dawson, and he's coming over from Colorado. Guys, this is the Jack State team that did really well in the transfer portal offensively, and it doesn't stop there. No, there are no transfers in the tight end room. I'm talking about the offensive line. I'll get there in a second, but Sean Brown, Jacob Barrick, and Pearson Baldwin all come back in this tight end room as there are no notable losses. And now onto the offensive line. Traylon Brown, yes, has gone to the NFL. Really talented offensive lineman. And Xavier Bosley is off to the transfer portal. You'll see him playing at West Virginia last season. You get another Power 4 transfer here. Cam Jones is over from Cincinnati, and the guy that still could see some good playing time over from East Carolina and Kendarius Small. So overall, when you take a look at this offense here, yes, a lot of it depends on what Logan Smothers is going to bring you at the quarterback position. To me, I think he's a really solid dual threat guy that we'll see some really good quarterback play from Logan Smothers this season. That passing yards per game number maybe should take a step in the right direction for Jacksonville State this year. And the run game I still think is going to be really good. Lewis and Wiggins are two good backs. Getting Andrew Paul over is huge. You look at the wide receiver room, Wells and Petway are big returners. Getting a Power 4 guy like Brandon Spector over is insane. So a lot of Dawson as well. Rudolph and Lacey are going to be some really good pieces. The offensive line, I didn't even talk about who they returned. Clay Webb, Willow Steen, Davion Harley, Brock Roby, Katie Arnold, and Cameron Griffin. Going to make for a really good offensive line for Jacksonville State this season. And overall, I just really like the offense that Jacksonville State possesses this season, and I think they're going to be one of the better ones in Conference USA this year. Now, they have to compete with the likes of Liberty and Western Kentucky. Liberty probably definitely going to have the best offense after they return Caden Salter and Quentin Cooley, but Jack State, look, they're still going to have a very good offense this year. Ton of talented pieces through the portal. Really like Rich Rod's offense here in 2024. But when you talk about this defense, it, again, is another unit that I like. Now, the rush defense, pretty darn good last season. Defensive backs, they had some pretty solid moments, but overall, apologies for that, but overall, this pass defense just was not great. That's the thing that you want to see improve for Jacksonville State here in 2024. But in order to talk about that, we have to get through the defensive front first. And boy, did it lose a lot of talent from a season ago. Well, let's start out with this defensive line. Chris Hardy is going to be... all three of these guys I'm about to mention leave through the transfer portal. Chris Hardy, gone. 60 tackles, 8.5 sacks from last season. Yikes, that sucks to lose. Devin Baldwin, he is going to be gone here as well. 13 tackles for him. And Kamari Stevens, 12 tackles, but 3.5 of those were sacks. So some really, really good production leaving this defensive line here in 2024. You take a look at the guys who graduated, just to go ahead and tack on to the amount of losses they had on this defensive line. Jeff Marks and Jackson Luttrell are both gone due to graduation. All of them, I should say both of them had over 25 tackles for for the Gamecocks last season. So this defensive line takes a lot of hits here, but when you talk about who they have coming back, Curly Young Jr. is going to lead this defensive line. 3.5 sacks for him a season ago, 32 tackles. Jalen Swain had 4 sacks last year. Daryl Prater, Ricky Samuel, Keon Clark, all of them really solid contributors to the defensive line from last season. And you do get Reginald Hughes coming over through the transfer portal. That could see some really big minutes on the defensive side. Linebacker room. Well, you do lose your leading tackler from a season ago. That is Quay Drake. 92 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 pass defended. Also had 1 pick. He's run out of eligibility and graduated. And Larry Worth, the 5th leading tackler on this team, 63 tackles, 3 sacks. He had 2 pass defended and a pick as well. He is going to be gone through the transfer portal. You'll see him playing for a new program here in 2024. That new program will be the Arkansas Razorbacks. By the way, Reginald Hughes, kind of that defensive line edge rusher player. You could put him as a linebacker transfer as well, which officially is what he's listed on 24/7. But on our lads, he kind of is playing that position to where he could play defensive line, he could play linebacker. He's over from Ole Miss. He'll be a really good piece. I just wanted to bring his name up again because you could put him in the linebacker room as well. But as far as returning linebackers for Jacksonville State this year, yes, you lose probably your 2 best linebackers from a season ago in Quay Drake and Larry Worth, at least in terms of production. Still a lot of good talent here. Lalatia Hale, Jabril Al-Amin, Dewan Deloach, apologies for any mispronunciations, and Jaleel Birdsong are all guys you will see coming back here on the defensive side obviously on the defensive side, but in the linebacker room for Jacksonville State this season. Defensive back room, again, that was kind of the weakness of Jacksonville State last season. You're going to be losing one of your better players out of the defensive back room, and Colby Fuqua, who you will now see playing on Sundays. 86 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 pass defended, 1 interception as a cornerback last season. You also are losing Kokora Tarnu, who has gone through the transfer portal. He had 53 tackles, 4 pass defended, and led the team with 3 interceptions last season. Jeremiah Harris is also going to be gone, 3 pass defended, 2 interceptions, while being a top 5 tackler out of the safety room. No more collegiate eligibility for him. He has graduated. Okay, defensive back room. Let's talk about what they do return. Starting out with the cornerback room. You're getting Derek Carter back, Marco Baker, Jabari Mack, and Jameer Latimer. They're all returning here to this team. And honestly, you've got some pretty solid talent coming back. You want to go and take a look at the guy like Derek Carter, who led the team in passes defended last season. That's a big get back in the cornerback room. And all those other guys I mentioned will see some playing minutes in 2024. Fred Perry is coming back. He's the leading returning tackler as a safety. 75 tackles, 5 pass defended for him. Really good safety coming back. Kawan McCray, Jalen Bustamante, and if that's how you pronounce it, that's a great last name. It's a great last name nonetheless, but apologies for mispronunciations if there was one. And Austin Ambush will be coming back, as well as a couple portal pieces. Cam Snell and James Ziegler enter through the transfer portal, and kickers are people too. We got to show them some love. Alan Karajic, apologies again for mispronunciations, has left through the transfer portal. He was the primary place kicker last year, so Jack Dawson will be coming back to do the primary place kicking, Garrison Ripa will be back to do the primary place kicking duties. Jack Dawson returns as the punter here in 2024. So overall, when you talk about this defense, yeah, guys, I mean, the defensive line loses a ton, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see this pass rush and this rush defense take a step backwards from where it was last season. Now, I still think they're going to be good. There's a lot of good talent here, but again, wouldn't surprise me to see them take a step back. The secondary, though, you lose some pretty solid talent, but a lot of really good secondary pieces do return. Does that secondary improve here? I think that's going to be the main thing for Jacksonville State entering next season, and it's the thing I'm most excited to watch with this defense this upcoming year, which leads me into the schedule here for the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Here's the schedule for your Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Any game at home is underlined, while any game on the road is in italics. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Gamecocks are going to be able to win fairly easily, while any game in yellow is going to be a close competitive game, but one that I still see the Gamecocks being able to win. Of course, any game in red is a loss, and you start out with probably one of the more interesting, under-the-radar, non-conference group of 5 games of this season. Jacksonville State gets Coastal Carolina on a Thursday at home. And I honestly think I might tune into this one because I could see this one going either way. Obviously, Jacksonville State has the home field advantage here, and they have a lot of really talented offensive pieces, and Coastal Carolina loses everybody from last year. A lot of really good wide receivers, including Jared Brown, are gone. Obviously, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Grayson McCall, that quarterback who's been legendary for Coastal Carolina during his time in Conway. He is off now to NC State. But I got to be honest with you guys. I like a lot of the talent Coastal Carolina still has. They'll be one of the better teams in the Sun Belt Conference this year. Ethan Vasco's back to play quarterback. Braden Bennett is back at running back, as well as Max Balthauser. You still have some solid wide receiver pieces. Defense is loaded with seniors, a lot of experience on that side of the ball. And I think Coastal Carolina comes in to Jacksonville State, and I think they put up a little bit of a shock with the pieces that Jacksonville State has to fit in on the defensive line, all the depth pieces that need to play a bigger role. Braden Bennett, I think, is going to be able to take advantage of that. Coastal Carolina gets that run game going, and I think they're going to be able to overpower through the air as well. Again, Ethan Vasco, obviously not as good as Grayson McCall, but I still think there are enough wide receiver pieces there to give Jacksonville State a good fight, and I think they come away with the win there. Now, again, a game that Jacksonville State could win. Coastal Carolina lost a ton of production. I'm not the biggest fan of Tim Beck as a head coach, but I like Coastal Carolina this season still, even with all they lost. And I do think they pick up that road non-conference win against Jacksonville State. And I think the Gamecocks start out 0-2 as they lose to the Louisville Cardinals, who will be one of the most talented teams in the ACC this year. One of the teams that hit it out of the park in the transfer portal. And I just don't see Jack State competing with Louisville this upcoming season. Now, this road game against Eastern Michigan is very, very important, especially if you do start out 0-2 like I am predicting. Eastern Michigan is another game here where I could really see this one going either way, and I had a very, very tough time trying to decide how I wanted to predict this game because Eastern Michigan lost a ton of pieces from last season. I believe quarterback, running back, couple wide receiver pieces. Yeah, you just lose a ton of guys off of that team from last year. That being said, you do have a transfer quarterback coming in Cole Snyder. Delbert Mims is coming into play running back. Some wide receiver pieces coming through the portal. They loaded up on depth on the defensive side through the transfer portal. And overall, I think Chris Creighton is still going to have himself a pretty solid team in the Mid-American Conference once it's all said and done. But with Jacksonville State possibly needing to fill some spots on that defensive line, and with the amount of talent that leaves that running back room from Eastern Michigan last season, the guy's name is escaping my mind right now. I don't think they have the run game that Coastal Carolina has to be able to take advantage of it, and for that reason, I have Jacksonville State winning that one there on the road, so they get a big non-conference road win before they round out non-conference with Southern Miss, and they should be able to win this one here. The Golden Eagles were not a great team last season, and they're probably going to be less talented this year than they were last year. Frank Gore Jr. is gone. You lose some other good pieces through the transfer portal. Look, to be honest with you, I could easily see Southern Miss taking a step in the right direction record-wise this year, but I think Jacksonville State is more talented. They get this game at home, and they get the non-conference win against Southern Mississippi. So, hey, you got you go two for 4 in non-conference play. You enter conference play in Conference USA after a bye week, and you get the new team to the FBS ranks. That is Kennesaw State. And honestly, it's going to take the Owls quite some time here to adjust. They were not a great FCS team last season, much like Jacksonville State and Sam Houston were before they entered FBS play. I think Kennesaw State went 3-8, 3-9, something like that last season. I just don't think they're going to be a great team this season. It's going to take some time for them to adjust to the FBS level, and they probably will be one of the worst teams in the country once everything is said and done this year. Sorry to all my Owls fans out there. I got the Gamecocks winning, and I also have you beating New Mexico State, a team that lost everybody from last year. Diego Pavia, Star Thomas, Jerry Kill, their head coach, is now an offensive analyst at Vanderbilt. And they just lose everybody from last season, offensively, defensively. Ton of production is gone. That team is one of the biggest question marks in Conference USA this season. I think Jacksonville State's going to be able to get the win there. Second bye week of the year, you got to play 6 straight games to close it out. Let's do it. Hey, Middle Tennessee is going to be no pushover this season. I love Nick Vattiato at quarterback. He's got a lot of very good weapons surrounding him, and I think Middle Tennessee is going to prove to be a fairly competitive team not the Mid-American Conference. I still got my mind on Eastern Michigan for some reason, in Conference USA this year. But Jacksonville State has them at home. Middle Tennessee has some things that they need to get figured out defensively. Don't think they'll be able to slow down this run game or Logan Smothers, and that's going to be a win there for Jacksonville State. However, I do think they lose to the Liberty Flames. Again, as I talked about back in my offensive preview, Liberty returns Quentin Cooley. They return Caden Salter. A lot of wide receiver pieces come back. Defensively, they still got a lot of very good pieces, even with all the transfers that they do lose, such as Kobe Singleton, among others. They're going to be one of the most talented group of 5 teams this year. They're going to be one of the best group of 5 teams this season, and that is a loss for me for the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. You do have to go on the road then the next week and play Louisiana Tech, who I don't think will be any sort of pushover this year, but they definitely are not as good as what Jacksonville State is going to possess this season. That is a win there for me. You go ahead and take a look there, and just, they got some transfers that they're trying to fit in offensively and a ton of depth on defense as well. I just don't see them competing with Jacksonville State. That's a win for me for the Gamecocks. Next 2 games should be wins. They beat FIU, and I think Sam Houston is going to get better this year, but FIU and Sam Houston probably end up being 2 of the worst teams in the conference this season, while FIU could actually see some pretty solid play this season. Sam Houston, I think, is also going to be losing to Jack State, and Jack State, they can't get that 9-win season. They lose on the road against Western Kentucky. This is another game that I had a very hard time predicting because I like both of these teams out of Conference USA. You got TJ Finley coming in there at Western Kentucky. You have some really good pieces coming back offensively, defensively, loaded up on defensive back transfers. I just think overall playing at home there is going to give the Hilltoppers the advantage, and it leads me to an 8-4 record for Jack State. But look, guys, I love what this offense is doing here at Jack State, and if that defensive front can stay consistent with where it was last year and the secondary can improve, you're going to see a jump in play from the Gamecocks this year. Love what Rich Rod is doing on the offensive end. I think the offense will be stellar this season. The schedule sets up nicely for him. Hey, 9-3, maybe even 10-2 is possible. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but overall, I like the Gamecocks out of Conference USA this season. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. We'll talk about Colorado State in my next video. Goodbye.